to Action 2 News at 6. On March 24th of 2015, Trooper Trevor Casper lost his life in the line of duty in Fond du Lac County.
And today marks 11 years since his death. The Wisconsin State Patrol marking the day. In a social media post today, Trooper Casper, 21 years old at the time of his death, he was an 8-month veteran of the State Patrol. He was following a vehicle driven by a man suspected of robbing a bank in Wasaukie and killing an innocent bystander. Trooper Casper was shot 3 times after chasing the man to a pick and save where his memorial bench now lays. It was his first solo assignment.
And